Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Merle Massey. I am the coordinator of undergraduate research here at the University of Saskatchewan, and I run Youre, the Student Undergraduate Research Experience program. This session is being recorded, and we could potentially ask for a copy of the presentation. We'll talk with Alix about that. But our presentation today is from Alix Hayden, who is the Associate Director of Research Excellence and Innovation here at the University of Saskatchewan. And she's going to be talking to us about customer interviews and market conversations. Basically, how to check if your business idea is good. With that, over to you, Alix, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Merle. I'm happy to be here, and thanks everybody who's tuning in live and is going to get the opportunity to talk live questions. So yeah, as Merle said, I'm Alix Hayden. I'm excited to talk about this topic today because I love talking and having conversations, and so customer interviews and conversations is something that I think is pretty fun and isn't just necessarily obvious in terms of just go out and chat. So I hope everybody has a little bit of fun as well. So as Merle said, I'm Associate Director at Research Excellence and Innovation. So what do we do at the university? Our unit takes care of partnerships and technology transfer at the University of Saskatchewan. So that means we work a lot with external partners, industry, other external stakeholders, as well as working on ideas or inventions at the university that could be a potential product or service. It's our job to get those out of the university into the hands of partners that can make sure that they become impactful outside of the university. So I just want to do a shout out about this Youre program Entrepreneurship Series. This is the first year that we're doing this with Merle's program, and it's been so much fun. And these are the topics that are included in this entrepreneurship series. So if you didn't catch any of these, right now we're here, market validation and customer conversations. But what has come before also sort of informs what we'll talk about today, and what will come after this will tie in as well. So yeah, make sure and search these other ones up if you're interested in entrepreneurship and the process of taking a research product out of the university into the market and into the world. So setting the stage for what we're going to talk about today, the premise is that you have an idea for a business. And as you saw, some of the folks that have presented in this series before me talked about things like building a business plan, using a business model canvas, doing some lean startup type of thinking. We've touched already a little bit on concepts around commercializing research and intellectual property. And one of the topics that comes later is actually a deeper dive into intellectual property and what that means. So today, I'm going to ask you to assume that you have a business idea. If there's intellectual property around it that needs to be protected, that you need for your business to operate, that'll be covered in one of those other sessions. So what we're talking about today is the idea of talking about your business and your business idea with your market, with your potential market. So you have an idea, but is it a good idea? So if I have an idea for a scrubber machine to massage cattle, or maybe this is cleaning them. I love this slide, and I try to fit it into almost every presentation that I do, because I think like this is innovation, right? You know, so if you had this idea, how do you know if your product idea is a good idea? There's a lot of questions around this. And again, go back and see some of the presenters before me. We had a great presentation on Startups 101 that talks about some of these questions that face startup founders. So, what problem is my idea solving? I have an idea. Does it solve a problem? Because that's the foundation of a business that could be successful, because someone has a problem and they'll pay you to help them solve it, right? But we need to think also about how big is the problem. So what's the market size? Whose problem is it? How do I find out who is having pain because of this problem? Because those are my customers. Is someone going to pay for my solution? Is the problem painful enough that someone will pay me to solve it, or pay for my product that will solve it? And how much will they pay? Is someone else already solving the problem? If other people have this problem, what are they doing right now to solve it? Or have I thought of something that, is a solution that truly doesn't exist anywhere? So these are all questions around, right away, I have an idea for a business. And solving these questions is how you build a business, and how you understand whether or not your idea is good, and whether or not you actually have a viable business in front of you. So, and this is a quote from a fellow called Steve Blank, who is one of the sort of fathers of the concept of lean and agile startup philosophy. So the idea that when you're building a business young, when the business is young, you need to be able to move very quickly and iterate quickly, and take these sort of lean approaches. And we'll talk about that a little more. A lot of these entrepreneurship topics are built on that philosophy. And this quote is great when you're thinking about, how do I answer those questions? There are no facts inside your building. So get out. You can't think your own way inside your own head or inside your own space. You can't think your way to answering these questions. You have to get outside. So of course, the next question that you're facing is, okay, I hear you, get out of my own head, get out of my own thoughts and my own concept of my idea. But where do I go? What do you mean by this? And so this is a great place to start. You will have seen this in this series before. People refer to this. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries is kind of the Bible on this method of figuring out how to start a business, do it quickly, and iterate quickly on your idea. Figure out what is the product, answer all of those questions, so that you either know you don't actually have a great business idea, or you can refine the idea that you have. So the advice is, where are you going when you get out of your building? Go to who and where you think your customers are. So there's a previous presentation here by a colleague of mine called Chris Bowman in this series, talking about the business model canvas. And this is from this lean startup concept, where you are asked very early, you define who do you think your customers are? What do you think your product is? Guess at it right now. Figure out who you think that is. And then the very next step, before you refine anything too tightly, before you work too hard on perfecting anything about your idea, is go to who you think your customers are and where they are. So this is called customer discovery. And again, a lot of programs that focus on incubating ideas and incubating businesses and incubating founders of startups really heavily focus on this process of customer discovery and market validation. Because again, it's the very best way at the very beginning to figure out the answers to all of those questions. Do I have a good idea? What is my product? What am I solving? Who has the problem? All of those things. So what does customer discovery look like? So this is where you want to kind of work your personal networks, work mentor networks, go on LinkedIn, find contacts on websites, And again, you're looking for people you think are your target market or your target customers that you very first imagine. Those are the people who need this thing. So old-fashioned research, sort of, online research. Use those locations. You can create cold emails, make cold calls, hold sort of meetups where you're bringing together some people that you know to help you make these connections. So this is sort of a preview of what it's going to be like to actually sell your product. And this is where people want to understand right away whether they need to keep their idea a secret because somebody might steal it from them or do it, before they can. And again, I'll give that little caveat in research and the land of inventions and patents. You definitely want to think about those things and protecting that intellectual property when appropriate, and getting advice on that. But there's a lot of business ideas that aren't necessary. They're not protected. You don't have to have a patent. You don't always want to have a patent. And there's some great speakers in this series that will talk to that in detail. So what you're facing here is the concept of a little bit of fear, maybe, that if you talk to people about your idea, it'll get out and somebody else is gonna steal it from you. And you'll hear a lot of I've heard investors say that having ideas, it's easy to have ideas. What's difficult is to execute on them. So telling someone about your idea is not what you should fear, right? You need to get out and talk to people about your idea so that you can refine it and understand how to build a business on your idea, or whether you can build a business on your idea. So it's not about secrecy here. It's about getting out and talking to people, as many people as you can. And this isn't an easy thing to do. So when you feel like you're no good at this, that's what we say. It's not you. It's just not easy to do. So what do you do? What do we mean when we say get out and talk to customers? So I've drawn heavily from some resources here that I'll link at the end of the presentation, and we can provide these slides. You'll see at the bottom, this is from customerdevlabs.com, which is a great lean startup resource. So rule number one here in validating your idea with a market is don't talk about your idea. So here's the thing. As soon as you start thinking about your idea for your business that you're in love with and you're passionate about, this is what happens. This is what the lean startup method will tell us. So first of all, your brain will betray you. It's thinking about your idea and it loves your idea. When you talk about your idea, your voice and your body language will show that you want to hear your idea is good. So that cancels out your ability to read and interpret what you're hearing back from the person that you're talking to, because you're passionate about this idea. You have to be passionate about it if you're gonna build, if you're gonna found a company, if you're gonna build an enterprise. So the fact is that most people who agree to talk to you about your business idea, they typically want you to succeed. They want to help you. So they'll often tell you what you want to hear. They'll often try to be nice to you and say, yeah, that's a great idea. I would pay for that. But that's not the kind of information that's going to help you move forward. So rule number two. So first of all, don't talk about your idea. Number two, in validating your idea, is do not ask about the future. So don't ask, would you pay for this? How much would you pay for this? Would you use my thing? Would you buy my thing? So again, somebody that you're talking to is going to want to help you. And so not intentionally, but they might lie. in answer to those questions. So you don't need hypotheticals in trying to validate your idea. You don't need somebody to make guesses, would you pay for my widget? And how many of my widgets do you think your company would buy? Okay, again, somebody guessing at that or thinking about that hypothetically and trying to help you is actually not going to be what you need to advance your idea. So I just demonstrated that, right? The rule here is don't ask questions with would you, would you like this? Would you buy it? So the obvious thing that arises here is then what should I ask? So I'm not supposed to talk about my idea, and I'm not supposed to ask would questions. I'm not supposed to ask future for future predictions. So easy. You're supposed to ask open-ended questions. So questions that can't be answered with yes or no. And again, maybe does this sound easy? No, if only there was a script. Again, I'm going to direct you to this Agile resource, Customer Dev Labs, because there is a script. And we actually have provided this script to student entrepreneurs that we've worked with and asked them to spend 4 months over the summer holding 100 customer conversations using this kind of approach. So here's your five questions script. What's the hardest part about blank? Tell me about the last time that happened. And why was it hard? What have you tried to solve that problem? And what don't you love about what you've tried? So these questions are designed to get a conversation going with a potential customer, someone you believe is either a customer or who is in the market that you believe your product fits in. And the idea here is that you can take the information from each of these conversations and iterate and develop your product fit and find the exact right customers and the right markets that either want your product, or you'll find out that maybe you can't find that. You can't find a good fit. So the trickiest part here is what's the hardest part about blank? About how do you fill in that blank? What's the hardest part about? And you're tempted here to fill in a specific about your idea. So let's take an example. So in this example, let's imagine that you're developing a version of Yelp focused exclusively on vegetarian restaurants. So looking to go to a new city and find a vegetarian restaurant. So how do you open that customer interview? How do you fill in that blank? So here's the don't ask advice. What's the hardest part of finding a good vegetarian restaurant in a new city? So this is very specific. You're telling this person that you're talking to, you're telling them about your problem. You're telling them what is the problem you want to solve. You want to help people find a vegetarian restaurant in a new city. And they're gonna, tell you things specifically about good vegetarian restaurants. If you ask them what is the hardest part about being a vegetarian, that's very broad. So you're going to get a whole bunch of information and discussion on a range of problems that you don't care about, right? You're going to hear about, I'm not a vegetarian, so actually, but you're going to hear about, all kinds of things that have nothing to do with finding restaurants. So how about this? What's the hardest part about eating out as a vegetarian? So there's some significant context there. The situation would occur frequently enough, or it's painful enough that it would warrant solving, right? So you've kind of got the pieces of the context around somebody is searching for a way to eat out as a vegetarian. Your idea is designing an app that will help them find restaurants in cities maybe where they're not familiar with it. But you might hear in this specific, you're asking about eating out when you're a vegetarian, you might hear pieces of this problem that you didn't think of because you're asking a question that frames the problem, but it's not so specific that people just start talking to you about vegetarian restaurants. So you might hear things that help you develop your idea and help you think of things that are pain points around your idea that people will pay to solve. So the best advice is also when you have a good conversation with somebody about your idea, and again, you're sort of, opening that up with, what is difficult about doing this thing, and giving people an opportunity to share what their difficulties are, what their problems are in the area that you are wanting to position a solution. And the best thing you can do at the end is to ask if they know somebody else that you should talk to. Because again, your customers, you might be identifying customers and imagining the person or the other business that's going to pay you for your solution. But the other players in that market space are valuable to talk to, because what you're trying to do here is refine your impression of what your customer is and what their problem is, and then understand whether you can solve it. So always asking, who else can I talk to? Do you know someone else that I should talk to? Is there someone else in your organization? Am I talking to the wrong person in your organization? Is there someone else in your organization that would have difficulty solving this kind of problem? So asking people about their problems, their pain points around the concepts that you're interested in is what's going to get you the information to move ahead and know whether the idea that you're working on has a fit with a market. So again, don't worry if you're not good at this at first. Again, as I said, we have asked students to go out and do this exercise over a 4-month summer period, and to write down the 100 conversations, the 100 contacts that they made, and what the results of those conversations were, and what that highlighted about their idea or their business concept that they were working on. And I'm going to say that almost every single one of them did not love the idea of picking up a phone and cold calling someone or reaching out on LinkedIn and asking for an introduction, and then having these meetings, having these conversations, because it's not easy to do. And very few people actually feel super comfortable doing it. And what we learned was that everybody gets better at it. Again, as I said before, it's a little bit of a preview of what it will be like to sell your product to somebody, because you really quickly start to refine exactly your idea of exactly what people want and exactly what they're willing to pay, or exactly what how big a pain point this problem is, and whether they're willing to look for a new solution, or whether they're willing to replace the solution they're currently using. And yeah, so if you're not good at it at first, I guess the message is that you're going to get lots of practice, because this needs to get repeated. You need to have these conversations. Like I said, the goal that we had in a 4-month time span for some summer entrepreneurs that we worked with was 100 conversations on every idea. So you get better at it, and you start to see the value of it. You start to see when you track results that come out of these conversations, and you start to refine the contacts. You start asking people, well, who should I talk to? Can you refer me to somebody else in your network? You will start to refine the idea that you have, and the conversations that you're having start to give you more. You start getting more value out of every single one of those conversations. So you yeah, you get lots and lots of practice doing this. So as I said, here's the resources on these kind of topics and that span this entire entrepreneurship series. Definitely, if you haven't already, take a look at the Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Online, there's tons of information now about Lean Startup methodology. These are a couple of good resources that we use in programming. And again, that interview script generator, it's a pretty cool thing on customerdevlabs.com. Actually lets you plug in some of your fill in the blank ideas and generate your own scripts. Yeah, so this is me. This is contact information. Again, our unit is focused on partnerships and innovation at the university. So both reaching outside of the university to partners and supporting innovators internally at the university. So if you have questions or ideas about anything that you see in this entrepreneurship series, we're the folks to come to, and we'd be happy to talk to you. I can take questions.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Alix. Yes, absolutely. Any questions that you'd like to come in and toss Alix's way, that'd be great. I'm going to stop the recording and allow the questions to just happen organically. Thank you so much, Alix, for being with us
You're
today.
welcome. I'm going to stop sharing, I think.